So our speaker today is somebody we know and love and who always is giving us those provocative insights into life that sometimes send us away shaking. But anyway, we love it anyway. So welcome him back, Kevin Hauber.
Good morning. Whoa. The voice of the burning bush. Okay, we're a little more moderate there now. Still loud? Okay, can we take it down just a notch? Thank you, guys. So, while we're decreasing the volume here, why are we quiet in church? Because people are sleeping. So we'll see how that turns out today after the lesson. You can give me feedback or just snore and I'll know. So when we circled up outside this morning before the service, first off, I realized that those of us standing there in the circle had been doing this for a long time. We've been in community together for a really long time. And then Therese challenged us to use the word forthwith, which has happened several times already in the lesson. And I said, well, what about fifth with? and sixth with? And so we'll see how this goes by the time we're done today. We could be up to 10. So first, since it's October, here is a Halloween factoid for you. Scientists believe that pumpkins, which are technically a fruit, a very hard-skinned fruit, but a fruit nonetheless, originated in North America around 9,000 years ago, with the oldest seeds having been found in Mexico somewhere between 7,000 and 5,500 BC. So pumpkins go back a long ways. However, the tradition of carving pumpkins was brought to America by the Irish. And in their homeland, the Irish used to carve jack-o'-lanterns out of potatoes or turnips. But upon arrival to America, they began to use pumpkins instead because they were far easier to carve. So if you've ever tried to carve a turnip, you know, that would be a natural choice, right? The tradition of jack-o'-lanterns stems from an Irish legend about a man named Stingy Jack, who was a somewhat unpleasant character, as the name would tell you, who was famous for playing tricks on people and who was doomed to roam the earth with only a hollowed-out turnip to light his way. Stingy Jack. Okay, so the inspiration for today's talk is it's a fall theme kind of thing. I think it's actually more of a Thanksgiving kind of a subject. And since I won't be back again until after Thanksgiving, I'm going to do it now and just get ahead of myself here a little bit. But the inspiration came from a single word and from a Spanish word that I heard used. The Spanish word was basta. Basta. And the literal translation is enough. And that's not enough like knock it off enough, although it can be. But in this context, it's more like it's enough. It's enough, or it's sufficient. So can you get that? Basta. It's enough. Yeah, just say that to yourself and take a breath when you say that. Basta. It's enough. So let's spend some time talking about sufficiency this morning. We had a great daily word leading into the subject of abundance stuff. Let's talk about sufficiency, because I believe that that we as a culture have a never enough culture, not a it's enough culture, but a never enough culture where excess and striving are so common that they're just embedded and we're just used to it and don't even notice it. And it takes a lot of awareness to be able to see that and choose to step aside from it. And it shows up as a lot of more in our lives in so many levels. So let's take a look at the contrast of that and how that excess breeds complexity and disconnection. complexity and disconnection that come out of that excess. So let's look at a couple simple examples. If you don't have sufficient water in or around you, that's a problem, right? Obviously, not enough water, dehydration, too much water. We actually had a friend who had drank too much water and diluted, that internal ocean that everything acts on inside, and ended up sick because of it. You can have too much water inside you too. There's a balance point in there. And if you look in the larger context, history is full of actual and metaphorical floods. That's the too much water aspect, of course, and historic droughts, which, there are plenty of stories about that, and we know that in California, right? What about money? Too little money creates complex problems, doesn't it? And too much money creates complex problems. There's a balance point in there somewhere. What about food? Not enough food is certainly a problem, and there are health issues and waste that come from that. Some people even take pride in their ability to waste and be excess, or to deny themselves. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, being extreme on one end or the other is something that some people take pride in. So whether it's water or food or money or anything else, there's a sweet spot that's in the middle. Basta. It's enough. And notice, sufficiency is defined as an amount of something that is enough, or the quality of being good enough. How about that? The quality of being good enough. Anyone ever felt not good enough? Okay, we'll talk afterwards, but just relay how that feels. But basta, it's enough. So here's a takeaway for today. It's enough, basta, translates very easily into I'm enough, and you are enough. So hang on to that as a takeaway for today, and just breathe with that for a minute. I'm enough, you're enough, basta. So I'll give you a personal perspective on this. My mom's parents split up when she was 2. Her dad remarried to a woman who was very jealous and forbid him to have any contact with his ex or with my mom. So he would go park his truck down the block from her house, and she would come, and they would have a little bit of time together. And essentially, he sneaked to be able to get time with his daughter. It was never enough, at least not for her in that situation. So mom's memory was that there was never enough food around, because of course this was during the Depression, which came very soon after they broke up. Her memory was that there was never enough food around, or enough money, or definitely not enough time and love with her dad. And that led to a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms and devices and behaviors over time. You've probably seen things like that happen. Scarcity consciousness like that is a really insidious thing, isn't it? It's something that goes really deep and persists long after any actual scarcity might be happening on the outside. Ever notice that? I don't know if you had parents or relatives or others who were also children of the Depression, but that really formed a lot of the worldview of people who lived through that, whether they were younger or older or whatever. And that scarcity consciousness is something that can persist throughout a lifetime. Do you remember Gone with the Wind, with Scarlett O'Hara standing and saying, "As God is my witness, I will never be hungry again"? That was a very formative moment out of that scarcity consciousness experience. So this kind of energy actually affects our epigenetics, and it gets into our DNA. And this kind of thing gets passed on generation to generation. It's interesting, I was reading a book that was talking about some of these epigenetics and traumas in particular, and one of the subjects was Holocaust survivors and the traumas that they had been through. And it wasn't their children that necessarily experienced the results of the same kind of traumas, but it was their grandchildren. The epigenetics had actually been passed down to the grandchildren, who started showing up with some of the same kind of symptomatology of the experiences of the grandparents, even grandparents that they hadn't necessarily known. It's a karmic inheritance that we need to bring out into the light and to transform. There's a lot of karma to burn in this. So the truth, we know in unity, is there is enough. Basta, it's enough. There's enough money. The problem is how people hoard money and misuse it, right? It has nothing to do with the amount of money available. There is enough food in the world. That's not an issue. It's distribution worldwide and the politics that go along with that that create the problem. Wars get fought over these kinds of issues, right? And then there is love. So can we agree that there is enough love to go around, but it's more about how we withhold our love out of fear that creates a problem? Do you get that? It's not about a lack of love. It's about how we withhold it. Now, all scarcity consciousness is born of fear. And it takes a lot of love to turn that steamship of consciousness around. Have any of you ever been on a large boat or on a ship and, full left rudder, and then you wait and you wait, and then the ship eventually starts to turn. But there's a lot of input to change the momentum of something going at speed that is so large. Our consciousness is that way. Are you with me so far? Okay. Everybody still awake? Okay. Basta. It's enough. There is enough, and we are enough. So it seems to me that the first step toward a sufficiency consciousness is to recognize that we live in an abundant universe. Just like we're talking about in Daily Word today. It's just a matter of how we perceive and use what's available to us. Most wars, like we're seeing now, are fought over energy and resources and or food. So why does Russia want to take over the Ukraine? Well, there's lots of rhetoric around that, but the fact of the matter is that Ukraine is the breadbasket of Eastern Europe and has a lot of resources that the Russians want. Now, a lot gets piled onto that, but the basic facts remain. You don't see Russia moving to take over Tibet, which is relatively resource scarce, isn't it? Okay. So how do we rise above scarcity consciousness that leads to so much strife in the world? Are you with me? Do you see that the scarcity consciousness creates most, if not all, of our strife, individually, between people, and collectively? That to me is a transformative question. Now, I always like to ground the stuff that we talk about if I can, and I found a really interesting article that speaks to this. In all places, Forbes magazine, so which I found, really? Okay, Let's check this out. Here's how it starts out. An abundance mindset refers to the paradigm that there's plenty out there for everybody. There's a good start, right? Plenty out there for everybody. The author says that one of his favorite quotes is, "The mind is everything what you think you become." Okay, with you so far. It is so true. Mindset is a critical component of success in business, sports, and life in general. There was also quantitative research done to back this up. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck examined the mindset of young students. She found that children who have a growth mindset that intelligence can be developed are better able to overcome academic challenges than those who have a fixed mindset that intelligence is predetermined. Ever run up against that one? Yeah. Those who believe that it can be developed do better. Another study on middle-aged adults, completed by researchers at Yale and Miami universities, revealed that those with more positive beliefs around aging lived 7.5 years longer than those with less positive self-perceptions of aging. So basically, your mindset can prolong your life. How about that? So we're all going to live to ripe old ages. Well, you know, that study was based on middle-aged adults, and so we're all in that category, right? You know, well, what was that? What was that line in Postcards from the Edge, where the daughter's talking to Shirley MacLaine, the mom, and the mom says, "Well, I'm middle-aged," and Shirley MacLaine says, or the daughter says, "Well, how many 126-year-olds do you know?" Yeah. Another way of looking at this phenomena is in terms of a scarcity mentality versus an abundance mindset. Stephen Covey initially coined these terms in his best-selling book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Scarcity mentality refers to people seeing life as a finite pie, so that if one person takes a big piece, that leaves less for everyone else. Most people, particularly in the corporate world, have been conditioned to have this scarcity mentality. It's no wonder when promotions are scarce, raises are scarce, resources are limited, managers hoard information, micromanagement abounds, and generally short-term thinking is the norm. If you've ever worked in the corporate world, I'm sure you're familiar with that. A scarcity mentality is what keeps many of us from achieving our goals. An abundance mindset refers to the paradigm that there's plenty out there for everybody. Next question is, how can we make the shift from a scarcity to an abundance mindset? And this is where we get into the boots on the ground stuff that I think is good takeaways for the day. So the first point on this, there's 5 points in this, and I'm going to add a 6th. The first point is focus on what you have. Focus on what you have. If you've been thinking about a career change but haven't taken the leap, you're probably having thoughts like, there aren't enough good jobs out there. I don't have enough transferable skills, or who am I kidding? There's too much competition. These are all ideas based on scarcity, what you don't have. Now, scarcity mentality sees limitations instead of opportunities. Instead, turn around those thoughts like, wow, I have 25 years of marketing experience, which will be a huge asset if I decide to start a business. Or over the last 10 years, I've made great contacts, which will be essential when I start networking for my next job. If you've just been laid off, instead of wallowing in self-pity, think about how great it is to finally have the time, and maybe the money if you received a severance package, to think about what you really want to do with the rest of your life. Ever get laid off and take that mindset? You know, that's really transformative. Point number 2, surround yourself with people that have an abundance mindset. And this is so important. You know those people who always seem positive and see the glass half full instead of half empty. Find them and start spending time with them. You know, there's that old thing about, you know, the optimist sees the glass half full, the pessimist sees the glass half empty, and the engineer sees the glass that's twice as big as it needs to be. My dad was an engineer, so I can say that. Attitudes rub off, and if scarcity-minded individuals surround you, you'll need to counteract that to make a career change. And as Tony Robbins says, the quality of a person's life is most often a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer group. Ooh, how about that? Ask yourself if you look up to the people with whom you spend time, and if not, you may need to search for other people living the life that you aspire to. It really does matter who we choose to hang out with, whether it's Sunday morning like this, or Monday at work, or Monday in bridge club, or whatever it is. Point number 3, create win-win situations. A scarcity mindset believes that if one person wins, another person loses. That's really common, isn't it? Try to create win-win conditions in your life to combat this manner of thinking. Look for ways for both parties to leave with a sense of accomplishment and a better feeling about the relationship. Consider practicing this in both your personal and professional life. This often means listening without judgment or censorship. That is a skill to develop, isn't it? Listen without judgment or censorship. Or just try acknowledging that, oh, I'm going into judgment. How about that? It's showing up. Fully understanding what a win-win means for both of you and brainstorming solutions until you find one that satisfies both parties. Number 4, incorporate gratitude into your daily life. Now, this was your cover quote from Oprah Winfrey. She says that if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. One more time, just for sinking in here. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. It's our choice, isn't it? It's very difficult to feel fear or sadness while feeling gratitude at the same time. Ever notice that? Yeah. Practicing gratitude is one of the most widely recognized methods for improving one's overall well-being. In 2007, Robert Emmons was a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis, and he's the founding editor-in-chief of the Journal of Positive Psychology. He began researching gratitude and found that expressing gratitude improves mental and physical well-being. Being grateful also impacts the overall experience of happiness, and effects tend to be long-lasting. Long-lasting happiness, how about that? One way to practice this is to write down 5 things you're grateful for each day, or if you really want to incorporate this practice into your life, you can create a gratitude journal. Anybody got a gratitude journal? Anybody have those? Really effective tools. Remember to include even the simplest things that you might take for granted, like the comfortable mattress that you sleep on, or breathing clean air, which we are abundantly blessed with here in the Central Coast. And it might be easy to forget that at times. Let's be grateful for the things. It's a beautiful day. Not everybody is experiencing this right now. This is something for us to be grateful for. Number 5, train your mind to recognize the possibilities. An abundance mindset allows you to see more in your life, more options, more choices, and more resources. One fascinating Harvard study found that when we focus on one particular thing very intently, other possibilities that are right in front of us can go completely unnoticed. The brain can only absorb so much. So if your belief is, I can't do it, or it's impossible, then any other thoughts contradicting that will get thrown out. Ever notice that? The thing that's obvious, that's right in front of us, goes unnoticed until all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Here's another way to look at this. Start training your mind to loosen its focus and create an expanded awareness. Ask yourself, if you had all the time and money in the world and knew you couldn't fail, what would you be doing? Questions like that help to open up our mind to what's possible. ultimately remember that what you believe is what you receive. What you believe is what you receive. So I'm going to add a 6th point to this. That is simplify. Simplify. When we simplify, it's easy to recognize sufficiency. Because sufficiency really is, it's a pretty simple thing, you know. And when it comes right down to us, in a lot of ways, we are very simple creatures. We can spin stuff in our head all day long and come up with very complex kinds of stuff. But when we simplify, we're going to be happier. We're going to be more present. We're going to be less spun out on the stuff of life. So, basta. It's enough. I'm enough, and you're enough. We have enough in our lives. So, take a cleansing breath with that. And just say with me, basta. Thank you. Thank you. Bless you. Namaste. It's wonderful to be here with you today.